Hi everyone, I'm Gautam aka The Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the power of speaking things into existence. Now, before I do so, I'd like to remind you guys I'm available for coaching, so I offer hourly, monthly, email, and DM coaching along with premium coaching right now, which is basically unlimited calls and unlimited DMs. And I also have two different Facebook groups. I have a paid Facebook group where I come up live 4 times a month, answer your queries, as well as upload exclusive resources. And I also have a free Facebook group where I upload my YouTube videos in advance, as well as give you guys free resources as well from time to time. I also have a mailing list where I post articles from time to time, as well as my latest offers for coaching. And last but not least, I also have many different bundles based on self concept and manifesting an SP. And I also have many different bundles based on this as well. So if you guys need any information on that, feel free to email me or DM me via Instagram to figure out what plans may be suitable for you, and we can take it from there. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. So what prompted this video was me reflecting on my journey for the past 2 years, and one thing that really stood out to me, something that I really used to my advantage, was the power of speaking things into existence, especially the last 2 years, I would say. And even prior to that, like, there were several instances where I spoke things into existence and it really came true for me, both in the form of, like, my inner speech, and also putting it out there to maybe a friend or a family member. Both ways like worked for me really well, and I really wanted to kind of explore that. So I manifested like my dream job at one point by speaking things into existence. When I said to my mom, like, wouldn't it be wonderful if I manifested this job with like so and so criteria in, like, in all different areas, right? We are talking location, job scope, as well as like the time it takes, like, for me to go from my home to the place, and just the convenience of it, if you will. Like, I had like several different criterias, and I used to like speak this, like, to my mom, like, wouldn't it be wonderful if I get this? And there were like three possible locations, and long story short, at one point I did get the job I wanted, and albeit, like, when I like manifested this job, like, I didn't know that, like, the bridge of incidents that led me there, I didn't know that this was going to lead me there. But that's what happened, and I was so grateful for that. Like, when I look back, eventually after getting that job, I was like, wait a minute, I manifested this. And it was like really something that like seemed crazy at that time, because I was really kind of exploring manifesting on my own. But it all started with the idea of me just speaking things into existence. So in that particular situation, what I did was just saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if, and I just started speaking things. And mind you, this was like pre Neville for me. Like, even though I used the idea of like, wouldn't it be wonderful if, wouldn't it be nice to have this job and things like that, if you will. Like, I didn't know about Neville, but that technique was still so useful for me. And like, that is a technique that I would encourage you guys to use. It is, technically speaking, speaking things into existence, right? Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if, like, you already were in a so and so relationship? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you already had the so and so job? And just like dwelling in that like idea, and what does that feel like, right? And this is a way to really kind of hone in on what you want, and really kind of like experiencing that in your mind. So the idea of this is that even though it's not technically like, you're not speaking as though your desires are done, what that question, wouldn't it be wonderful, does is that it kind of opens up the possibility in your mind, and your mind just kind of takes it from there, right? Like, you're just opening up a new pathway in your mind, and your mind just like kind of goes with that. So when you say, wouldn't it be wonderful if I was already together with my SP, what the mind does is that it takes that and goes with that and follows that thought through. Okay, wouldn't it be wonderful? Okay, what exactly happens? Your mind thinks, okay, you're together with your SP. What then? Where will you guys be? What will you guys be doing? And it starts, like, rolling with that. And it's a snowball effect from that. And you start imagining things, and you start dwelling in those things. And it manifests really quickly, right? And if it doesn't manifest quickly, right, what happens, at least at the very minimum, is that the bridge of incident starts to unravel itself within the next few weeks, I would say. That has been my experience. If the end manifestation is not there yet, at the very minimum, the bridge of incidents would have started to unravel itself. Not that it matters, or not that you should be on the lookout for it. You may not even realize that those specific events that are unraveling itself is what's actually leading you to your desires. But make no mistake, when you look back at it, you will see it, like clearly, that okay, these were the things that kind of led me to where I wanted to be. So that's just something for you guys to note. So that's one way of speaking things into existence, right? Like by asking the question, wouldn't it be wonderful if? So that's one way I manifested my dream job. And the other thing that you can do is to just simply speak things out loud to someone as though it's done, right? Like let's say you're making a move, right? Be it like to another location, or you are making a big move to another company or things like that. You can simply start telling folks, right? Like when in discussions with friends or something, like you can just start telling, like, what, I'm actually going to be shifting into another company, for example, or I'm actually thinking about transferring to another company, and start speaking things into existence. Now what this does is it puts the idea out there, right? And the only risk of this potentially is that folks might start to probe you with certain questions, right? They might start to ask you, why are you doing it? What do you not like about the current company, for example? And how will you manage, if you don't get a job? How are you going to handle the transition and things like that? So they might kind of put up questions from time to time, but it doesn't matter, right? Like as long as you are anchored in the idea that okay, this is already done and the bridge is unfolding itself, you can confidently put it out there, right? And this isn't an approach for everyone, because like I said, if people give you a plethora of doubts to consider, if you're not kind of solidly anchored in the knowing, then this approach might not be for you. But like for those who are really having a high level of conviction, there is a power in putting it out there, right? So that's what I did when I took a gap year, was like like with my fellow guys and everything, like I just told them, like, I don't think I'm going to be here for long. Be prepared, right? Like don't put it on me if I just like suddenly just leave, or if I if I'm not, if you don't see me in class or something like that, you know what's happening, right? And this I actually put in, like, say on within like April or May of 2021. And it took me about a little around a year, I would say. So I left school in March of 2022. And when I did that, like it was already almost a year at that point, right? But the seeds, the foundations of that specific desire, and I had my reasons for it, but the seeds of that foundation was already put in motion, like well over almost a year ago at that point, right? And I just let things unfold. And when I'm saying it out loud, that's what I'm believing as well. So this is why there's power in saying it out loud. We often talk about the power of inner speech and inner dialogues and things like that, but there is a power when it comes to saying things out loud as well, right? And for you to really kind of use this to its maximum effect, I would say you need to really be anchored in the knowingness, the truth of it. But if you are, this is really a powerful technique for you to use, right? And when you do that, like especially when you have a manifesting buddy of sorts to kind of have your ideas bounce around with, this is amazing, right? Like you can speak things into existence. And when you are doing this, like you can be very like sarcastic and you can have fun with it and things like that too. But like what I would do if I were you and if I have a buddy is really kind of take the Abdullah approach here, right? Like you really kind of like speak things as though it's already done, no buts and ifs and things like that, right? When I like told my friends, like I admitted to them, like, do I have a game plan? Absolutely not. Do I know how? Absolutely not. Do I know when? Absolutely not. But what I do know is I'm leaving. That's a fact, right? And they knew it, like just the way I said it to them, like those guys knew that I'm going to make that jump, right? And like when the third semester rolled, I remember they were like, dude, when are you actually leaving? Like it's almost like third semester. I was like, I'm leaving, you know and that's the risk there. Like if you're not anchored in your desires, the risk is that when someone asks you something like that, like that can shake you, that can actually shake you. But you really need to be anchored in the knowingness that hey, you are going to do this and you are going to do so in the most perfect way, and all you really have to do is just trust the process. And eventually, I the the bridge of incidents unraveled in such a way that I get to leave, and I did. And like that kind of showed me that the power of speaking things into existence like always works, right? Like there's really so much power there, right? And when Abdullah told Neville, like, you are now in Barbados, right? Like, the reason why he could have just thought about it, right? Like, he could have just thought about it. He didn't even have to tell Neville and things like that, but he did make it a point to express it to him, right? You are now in Barbados, right? And even when like Neville tried to bring up that topic, like he kept going back to that, like, who told you you were going to Barbados? You are now in Barbados. And subsequently he even said, like, you went to Barbados and you went in first class, when Neville came back to him saying that he got a ticket from his brother and he wanted to go, but there's only steerage, but like he wanted to go in like first class or something like that. And Abdullah like again said, you went to Barbados and you went in first class. And he always kept that up, right? And there's power there. So again, if you have a manifesting buddy, this is a great technique. So you can use it to say things like, I'm now together with my SP, we went here so and so, we're having a great dialogue, like we really enjoy our presence with each other, and things like that. Those things I would say really 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 helps. So use it to your advantage. Like, if I were you, that's something that I would really use to my advantage, especially if you have a buddy. You can do it with a job, especially if you are making a jump to a new job, for example, with a higher salary, or if you intend to do so, and if there's no prospects at all in the 3D based on where you are right now, you can start expressing that to your friend, your manifesting buddy. You can start saying, hey, I love my new job, the salary is perfect, and you can even mention the amount. I'm maybe getting paid like $30,000 a month, and this is amazing, this is my dream job, and I'm really enjoying, the colleagues here are amazing, I really like the work life balance this work offers me, I really like the atmosphere, the culture here, and things like that, right? Like, start speaking things into existence. And as you do so, what you're doing is you're painting a vivid picture, and your mind is unable to differentiate between what's real and what's in your mind, right? So speaking into existence also kind of aids that process, and it really helps you to feel your desires as though it's already a done deal. That's what this is all about. It's about feeling your desires as though it's already done. In other words, convincing yourself that your desires are already done. And speaking things into existence, putting things out there, really helps, right? Granted, again, there are situations where if you say something, you might be met with skepticism. So what I would advise is that if you're going to use this specific technique, like, use it like with people who that you're not going to get a lot of pushback against, maybe a manifesting buddy, or maybe a family member that you really know well, maybe a mentor of yours or something like that, someone who that's not going to give you a lot of pushback, right? And this is for, of course, folks who are not like sorted in your manifestation process. That, like, if you are kind of like really kind of new to this process, or if you feel that the 3D can really shake you very quickly, then this may not be the ideal approach for you. But if you're a person who is solidly anchored in the assumption that their desires are already done, this technique is perfect. Like, just saying it out loud, there's a power in that, like with words. This is why, like, when you say things, like the people always say, like, watch your words, right? Like, there's a reason why, like, the ancients have, like, certain chantings and prayers, and there were certain words that carried power and things like that. There is a whole like a topic there to be explored, and that's worth exploring. If you're really interested, I highly recommend that you check it out. But there's a reason why folks really valued what came out of your mouth, basically, right? Even Neville talks about it, where he says that man is the only creature that is bestowed upon, like, the two things, that is mind and speech, right? The ability to think and the ability to speak. So if I were you, I'd really use that to my advantage as much as possible. So this is a technique that, again, if you are really like having a high level of conviction, go ahead and use it, put things out there, right? And you are definitely going to get the results for it, right? If it takes a while, then wait, but know that it's going to be the best possible way for you to reach your desires, right? Like, because I trust me when I say this, like, I laid the foundations of what I'm doing right now just by speaking that particular thing into existence, right? You don't have to know how, when you begin, exactly like when I began as well, like I didn't know how it was all going to pan out, but what I did know was that I was, that one way or another, by hook or by crook, this is going to be done. Again, I didn't know how. I know that, some circumstance is going to come and it's going to, thrust me into, the motion of it all. And all I have to do is just, like saddle up, buckle in myself in, if you will, and just go along with the ride, so to speak, right? And I did, and here I am, right? And that's what you really have to do. So you don't have to worry about, the potential pushback you might receive, or how it's all going to pan out, because I always tell clients, like, even if you do know how, you might not be able to influence all of those events in the bridge anyway, right? And people try to do that to kind of like like make it like make the bridge of incidents like go faster in a way, like to catalyze the process, if you will. But I always tell people, like, it will happen in the most perfect way possible. Just take a graceful approach, like take a step back, take a graceful approach, and just go with the flow. It has to pan out in your favor. Now, the third and last way of, like, like speaking things into existence is inner speech. Inner speech really helps, right? This is something that folks don't monitor often, if you ask me. And even for me, I have to often, like, catch myself and regulate myself. Like, you really need to be the regulating authority in your mind, kind of like policing, if you will, like, to see how well you are doing. And this is something that you have to do every single day until a certain thought process that you desire becomes natural in your mind, right? Your inner speech must be in alignment to your thoughts, right? Your inner speech must be in alignment to what you want. Like, you can want something, right? You can want to be, a billionaire, for example, but is your inner speech in alignment to what you want, right? So you need to kind of, like, regulate yourself there. You need to really watch, what you're, talking to yourself about, how you're describing your desires. Are you thinking of your desires, or are you thinking from your desires, right? In your mind, when you describe your desires to yourself, is it a far off distant dream, or is it like happening right here, right now? How are you talking about that to yourself? And you have to start, like, like monitoring that and change it to, reflect that your desires are already done, if you will. So that's something that I would really look into. So what could this look like from an SP context? So if you're thinking about manifesting a person, right, rather than labeling them as, this is someone I'd like to manifest, you label them as, this is my boyfriend or a girlfriend, like, for example, right? This is my wife or husband. Like, you have to start, like, putting that into, your mind. Every time when this person's, like, image comes to your mind, you should label them as, this is my partner. And you should start, like, ingraining that in your mind over and over and over again, right? When you're describing this person to yourself, again, put them in that role. And if you're describing a job that you like to receive, describe it as your current job, not a job that you would like to receive, but as though it's already your current job. That's what I would do if I were you here, right? And if I want to be in a certain place, I would describe myself as a resident of that specific, place. Like, let's say New York, right? If you want to be in New York, how are you going to describe yourself? Are you going to describe yourself as, a resident of Amsterdam, for example? No. You're going to describe yourself as a New Yorker. You identify yourself as a New Yorker, right? That's what you should be doing if your intention is to go to New York, right? You have to start putting yourself, identifying yourself as a New Yorker. That's what I would do, right? And this can also, like, for financial status, right? If you want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, start identifying yourself as that in your mind. Not that, that you are not aspiring to be a billionaire, you're not aspiring to be a millionaire. I know a lot of people, like, sometimes in their Instagram chats or something like that, right? Like, in their bio, sorry, like, they will start, like, they will put, like, I'm an aspiring pilot, an aspiring entrepreneur, I'm an aspiring so and so. No, don't aspire, just be. And that's what I would do if I were you, right? I would start simply being in my mind. And mind you, like, this is all in your mind. You're not, exerting any amount of physical effort in the 3D to shift something and things like that. No, you're simply claiming yourself, What's the harm in doing that, right? So come at it from that perspective, and I feel like it will really, really help you. So claim yourself, to be that which you desire, and it can come in the form of a role or a status of sorts. If it's a home, how do you identify that home? Like, this is my home. This is my home right now. I don't care if I don't have the paperwork for it. I don't care if I don't have the money for it. This is my home. Exactly what Neville's brother did, right? With that building. He's imagined the name of their family, I believe, on that building. He kept seeing it over and over and over again. And eventually it was. He didn't have the money to buy it at that time either. Someone, offered to pay up for it, and, bridge of incidents rolled that way. And, that day, I remember like Neville saying in his speech, like, that day, that building was his. He didn't have a penny to give, but that day, that building was his. And that's the power of, like speaking things into existence or seeing it as though it's already yours, be it through your inner speech and whatnot. And I would really use that, like to my advantage if I were you, right? And when you are seeing your desires, when you're thinking about your desires, like monitor and really regulate as to how you're describing it to yourself, right? Really monitor your inner speech. And that kind of really sheds light on where you stand with regards to your desire, right? And it all boils down to your thoughts. One of the reasons I always tell my clients is, monitor the quality of your thoughts to see how well you're doing. One of the reasons I say this is because when you see your thoughts, like you can see like how far you are. If you're claiming your desires to be already yours and things like that, chances are it's going to like unfold really quickly. But if you're still thinking, what, I'm trying to manifest this, I'm trying to do XYZ, I'm an aspiring so and so and things like that, that means you still have a lot of mindset work to do. And oftentimes these thoughts can come in the form of inner dialogue. So it's kind of like you have to kind of like really pick apart your inner speech and see those thoughts. You have to kind of identify those thoughts there, because if you're not like aware of your inner dialogue, like you may not, like this can like go past you. But if you see your inner speech, like how you describe the world to yourself in general, you can really, when you pick apart those things, you can really see clearly like, hey, these are the things that like I need to change. And how can one do this? By writing it down, by putting things down. Put down your thoughts on paper, and you will be able to see clearly where your limiting beliefs are, and you can change it and stick to the new story and really use that to your advantage, so that you can manifest all that you want. Guys, we have come to this end of this video. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notifications so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.